Yeah, so one thing I like about Ron DeSantis is that he is a competent governor who is actually doing the things that his constituents elected him to do. And this is kicking back a lot of very interesting responses from left-wing activists. Because Ron DeSantis is like, look, maybe we shouldn't sexualize children. And there are a lot of people screeching about why that's bad.
I've seen a number of people going, right, we've got to get out of Florida. If these are the new rules, then we're going to be right in the crossfires.
Yeah, it's really weird, that, actually. And I'm just summarizing it all as, what an odd thing to say. Why?
What an odd bit of information to offer up unprompted.
What a strange self-report. But before we go on, if you want to support us, go over to lotus.com, sign up for $5 a month, and go and watch an example of how there hasn't been effective governance in protecting children, which has been the eternal crime of the grooming gangs. I did about basically a 2-hour timeline going through just what was publicly known and when to explain that, because at the moment they're trying to push back and say, oh, well, there's no particular problem with the grooming gangs. It's nothing to do with the Pakistani community. You're all just a bunch of racists and all white people are pedophiles. It's like, okay, but actually, if we look at what we knew when we knew it, and there are lots of Pakistani community leaders saying basically what the far right have been saying on this issue. So it's worth going through and refreshing our memories at the very least, I think. But there are also a bunch of reports that are in there that I didn't have time to go through on that I'm going to go through on separate podcasts because I think it's important to do. Anyway, let's begin with February 2023, where DeSantis decided, well, no, this wasn't actually DeSantis, it was with his encouragement, but Florida's Board of Medicine and Osteopathic Medicine both passed rules that will ban gender-affirming care such as puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, as well as surgical procedures for new patients under 18.
Sounds pretty reasonable to me, pretty sensible.
So you can't mutilate children
and
because they have a mental illness.
This is very sensible, in particular in Florida, where that woman, Sid Gallagher, had been operating for a number of years up to that point. Oh, she was a surgeon who advertised her services for under 18-year-olds to be able to go and get double mastectomies and all these sorts of...
is this the Teats woman?
Yes, Yeet the Teats.
Right.
She's the one who recently came out saying that there is such a thing as eunuch gender and you can come to me so that you can become the eunuch that you've always wanted to be. There's 4,000 years of history of eunuchs, and I would say that very few of them were voluntary, but you know, she was there like they were just expressing themselves, their inner selves.
Well, not on Ron DeSantis' watch. And the 8th of March, Florida also defined drag queen storytime and drag shows in general as dangerous for the public health and safety of kids, because they are. You don't need to parade yourself around gyrating and naked in front of children. And the question is, why do you want an audience of children for that?
Well, that's the interesting thing. If we look over in England, Connor recently did the segment on that Naked Education television program, and he did that debate with, I think the name was Liam Halewood.
Yeah.
He recently appeared on Talk Television naked in the interview, as was perfectly appropriate for them. Talk Television, our guys, I suppose, just letting him show up naked.
Yeah.
And he said that doing that, I felt really liberated.
Did you feel really liberated?
So that's what sex education in the UK is for now, apparently, the liberation of those providing it.
Yeah, so House Bill 1423 has been sponsored by the Republican Party there. Is titled the Protection of Children Bill, and as written, the bill states that adult performances that a child may be able to see constitute an immediate and serious danger to public health, safety, or welfare. I agree. Any show, exhibition, or presentation in front of a live audience which, in whole or part, depicts or simulates nudity, sexual conduct, sexual excitement, specific sexual activities as defined by state statute, will be made illegal. Performances that present lewd conduct, lewd exposure of prosthetic or imitation genitals or breasts when it predominantly appears to be a prurient, shameful, or morbid interest, or is patently offensive to prevailing standards in the adult community of this state as a whole with respect to what is suitable material or conduct the age of the child present. For this, they'll get a $5,000 fine for the first violation and $10,000 for each violation afterwards. Good. Who could object to this? Apart from the weird pervs who want to gyrate naked in front of children.
I guess the weird pervs who wanted to gyrate naked in front of children had some harsh words to say about this.
Yeah, well, sucks for them because it was put into effect. And then on the 17th of March, transitioning children was banned. So Florida's Board of Medicine. Wait, did I report this twice? I think I did. Don't worry about me. But yeah. So at the end of March or middle of March, this was fully stopped. The only people who can continue it are children who are already receiving gender-affirming treatment. So no new cases can be started. So for anyone under the age of 18. So that's good. And then moving forward to the 12th of April, Florida lawmakers are like, hey, why don't we institute the death penalty for those people who rape children? Great.
It wasn't already the case?
No. Most of the time where the death penalty is used, most of the time it's for capital crimes. So when you've murdered someone, right? So
I'm happy to allow this expansion.
Yeah, I think this is worth it. And
I'm not from Florida, but go for it, Florida.
This is a sensible centrist policy. It totally is. Hang nonsense. Sorry, totally agree, right? As they say, if an individual rapes an 11-year-old, 10-year-old, 2-year-old, or a 5-year-old, they should be subject to the death penalty, says one of the lawmakers when the Rules Committee approved the bill. Totally agree.
The UN seething right now.
Yeah.
After that recent report they released.
Anyone who commits sexual battery on a child under 12 gets the death penalty. And this passed, which is great. And we'll come back to this post in a minute. This passed unanimously, because why wouldn't it?
It's a pretty depressing sign of the decline of civilization that this is something that wasn't already in place everywhere in the West.
Well, we don't have the death penalty at all.
Exactly.
Which is why you should go watch our thing on the grooming gangs, because that's how they ended up flourishing. But you'll notice 4,000 quote tweets on that.
All positive? All positive?
I mean, it depends on the position you have, actually.
Oh, okay. All right.
DeSantis also wants to change the ruling for the death penalty to, instead, if you get to the next one, make it unanimous that the person gets the death penalty. To make it a 2/3 vote, so 8-4 on the jury, which actually I'm mildly unsure of, because usually I read a book about a study about the bloody code, and the reason that it actually wasn't like people imagine it to be is because the jurors could return a partial verdict, and so they would just be punished in some other way rather than the death penalty. So having a unanimous requirement actually is a way of mediating the system.
I mean, a unanimous requirement seems a decent enough way of safeguarding it.
Yeah. So I can't say I actually agree with this, but it's, well, what can you do? And I talked about this in my article about the Sensible Centre, in fact, how the death penalty was abolished in Britain in 1965, I think it was. And it was done by the Labour government against the general wishes of the public. And we should bring it back.
Of course. I remember.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, sorry. I think I found an old Guardian article talking about the last people to be executed in the UK, the last 2 people to be hanged, and it was trying to portray them in a very sympathetic light. I think I shared it with you.
They were nonces, weren't they?
They weren't nonces, but they were child murderers.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
So the Guardian was there going with its bleeding heart going, think of the poor child murderers.
Yeah.
No.
These people murdered children and they were hanged.
No,
How
think
awful.
of the suffering that they will experience burning in hell.
Yeah, no. Anyway, so there are a lot of left-wing activists who are weirdly concerned about this. Here's someone giving us a summary.
DeSantis-backed stricter death penalty bill could prompt the Supreme Court to review, listen up. Bill SB 42 would allow Florida to seek the death penalty for anyone that commits battery of a sexual nature against children. Which, okay, whatever, but listen, this is insidious. Please pay attention. There aren't that many states that give the death penalty for offenses that are not murder. And this bill allows only 8 of the 12 jurors to decide that the defendant should get the death penalty for that to be carried out. And on the surface of the bill, it looks like, who's going to get mad about this? You know, a person over 18 who commits a SA over a child under the age of 12. But reading through the bill, my ears perked up. See, it defines SA of a child as any harm to their sexual organs. And it just made me think. If you were to write a bill that opened the doorway for capital punishment for non-homicide cases, and you were to target it at child abusers, not many people are going to object to it. And if you do object, you look like you're defending child abusers. But this is also coming from a state that has called trans people groomers and child abusers, that has said that gender affirming care is harm to a child's reproductive organs. And so I don't think it's that far of a stretch to say that this bill, which is designed to look like it's going after specifically child abusers, could be used to give capital punishment to parents whose children are receiving gender affirming care. This is the same state that yesterday agreed to interfere in custody orders if the child is at risk of being exposed to gender affirming care. This is the same state that yesterday a representative called trans people demons and imps and actually rebuked Satan on the state floor. And the reason that this bill is insidious is that it's really hard to stand against it without looking like you are defending, child abuse.
She's almost on the cusp of being like, hang on a second, is mutilating a child's genitals a form of child abuse?
There's a big question mark over her head as she's thinking, am I defending child abusers right now?
Yes, you actually are. I mean, it's now become illegal for you to actually mutilate a child's genitals or do mastectomies, the secondary sex characteristics, and that in the state of Florida for anyone under 18. So that's good. Fantastic. And if you are a child abuser who does do damage to a child's sexual organs, you can be put on death row. I endorse this. But then we got a bunch of mask off moments. Really odd. So in response to that leading report, so the death penalty against those who commit sexual crimes against children, Ashley Lynch says, I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is Ron DeSantis going full Putin. This is solely so they can start executing LGBT people. If you're queer and in Florida, get out while you still can.
Self-report.
That's a very interesting statement. Now,
this is spreading some pretty harmful stereotypes about the LGBTQ community,
which I do not agree with at all. I wouldn't just say that gay people are the sort of people who are going to get killed for committing sexual crimes against children in Florida. Ashley Lynch, on the other hand, when she sees that, she's like, what, you can't be a pedo in Florida? Quick, gays, get out. Yeah. There are a lot of responses like this. This person, so cool, I'm trans and I can't even visit my family anymore. Not that I'd want to, because I'll get arrested and killed for it. What, because you committed sexual crimes against children, did you?
I'm pretty sure they're not saying that if you are trans and enter the state of Florida, you will be immediately killed.
Well, no, that's not what the bills would do at all.
No, that's certainly not anything that I've got from this.
If you commit sexual battery against a child, Mr. Snowfelf, I mean, are you likely to get arrested for that and then executed for it? And there were lots of these.
Sorry, I'm just reading the rest of that. Yeah. Of course, nothing will happen to government officials. They'll just get a slap on the wrist. I mean, nothing will happen to them as long as they don't, assault children, yes. I suppose. I'd really like to hear from the pea-brained S-lickers that the transgender genocide is not real because as of today, it is effing happening. Okay.
Right.
So have they started rounding up the trans community in Florida? Have we got pogroms going yet?
But the point is, if we can't mutilate a child's genitals, that's a transgender genocide. Again, another mask-off moment right there.
Well, that's one of them, but they also... are you aware of some of the figures to do with the actual murders that they say that are related to the transgender genocide?
I've seen some.
Yes, because if you... Like the Human Rights Commission, or whatever they're called, the Human Rights Organization, the big pro-trans organization that looks into all of these, they provided a handy list of all of the ones that happened in 2021. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to just Google the names that they provide.
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, it will be a black trans prostitute who got murdered by one of her clients. And this is apparently the same as the government rounding them up and putting them all into camps.
Right. Slightly different issue, I feel, but yes.
I know, but I'm just pointing out that's what they're referring to.
But the thing I find fascinating about this is just, if you can't commit sexual crimes against children, you're going to get arrested and killed. And there are a lot of these. If you can click on the next one, if you just bring this up, you can see a mash of these people from the quote tweets, where they're just basically saying the same thing. Right, okay, so Florida is going to start murdering queer people. Don't rape children. I mean, I don't think that that's actually what anyone was thinking. And if we go to the next one, this one was deleted, but we've got an archive of it. If you're queer in Florida, I seriously, emphatically suggest you get the F out of there as soon as you can. They're totally going to use this to murder queer people for existing in public in response to giving the death penalty to those who commit sexual crimes against children.
Right. I think there are two ways that you can take this. One is the idea that, yes, they're basically saying all queer people are going to molest children, therefore get out of there. There is the other way of looking at this.
Certainly Hugo the Pink's cat.
So, yes, Hugo, anyone with a furry anime avatar is suspect as far as I'm concerned.
He's getting out of Florida as quickly as they can.
Out of Florida right now. But there is the other aspect, the other way that you can look at this, which is that leftists, being leftists, know that if they were to pass a law that said something in plain language, that they would then twist it as much as possible purely for the sake of punishing their political enemies. So they see somebody putting a law like this through, which is put in pretty plain language, and they think, oh God, they're going to do the exact same that we do, which is just punish our political enemies.
I mean, a lot of people just responded to this being like, well, what an odd thing to say. You just go to the next one, like this meme I saw going around a lot, just like, transgenders upset when Florida decides to harshly punish for pedophiles. It's just, I mean, that was my response. It's just like, but here's the logic, right? If you go to bitch pudding here, 1, make drag in the presence of children a sex crime. I think it is, yeah. It's the right thing to do. 2, make sex crimes against children a capital offense. Yeah, that's also good. 3, make it easier to secure the death penalty in capital cases. Everyone understands where this is leading, right? The genocide of LGBT people. Could you just not be a weird perv in front of children? Like, that is an option, right? Like, not all gay people or LGBT people feel the need to gyrate around naked and rub their nipples in front of children. That's just not a requirement, is it? You're allowed,
certainly not,
as a gay person, to not be a perv in front of children, right?
And if these people want to do drag in the presence of children, which is disgusting and shouldn't be happening in the first place, they don't necessarily have to be forcing legislators to give them the right to do so in Florida.
Yeah,
you can do so in California. It's despicable over there, but still.
Yeah, the Californians will let anything go. But this meant that Equality Florida, which is a gay rights activist organization in Florida, had to put out this: breaking. Today, we took the extraordinary step of issuing a travel warning. A warning of risks posed to health, safety, and freedom for those considering long or short-term travel or relocation in the state. So, right. I don't know how I'm supposed to interpret that as them saying, look, gays, if you move to Florida, you're going to get killed for noncing.
I'm just going to say there's been some pretty suspect things that happen in and around all of these kinds of equality movements, or organizations, I should say. The constituents they represent are not representative of those actions.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But the organizations themselves always seem to be pretty sus. I'm not going to lie.
They do. But yeah, and so finally, this is just a full-on LGBT genocide. As this commentator says, as much as I don't want to put this on your timeline, it is very important that you're aware of this. We are careening towards a genocide of LGBT people. If you think they would stop at the T, you are fooling yourself. All they're doing is stopping is bringing in the death penalty for people who nonce children. That's right. It is right to do that. What are you saying about your own constituency if that's LGBT genocide? Anyway.
What an odd thing to say.
Yeah, what a very, very odd thing to say.
Thanks for watching this segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. I sincerely hope you enjoyed it. If you fancy exploring more of the work that we do, you can subscribe to our website, lotuseaters.com, for as little as £5 per month to access all of the premium work that we do. We also have a merch store, which you can access at merch.lotuseaters.com. And if you'd like to find out about more that we're doing on the website and elsewhere, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com. Thank you and goodbye.